maybe you can talk a bit about motility and maybe a little bit about how you assess that and what do you pick up when you're investigating these things, and how might that trigger off changes? You kind of led us through a little bit of that with the appendix issue.
Yeah, so the organ motility, think of it, each organ has this little dance that it does. And that dance is essential to well-being. When the organ starts to lose motility, what I've found is that the muscles then become a witness to visceral tension. So if it's the lung, pec minor will often tighten up. If it's the kidney, it's going to affect the psoas. The bladder is going to affect piriformis. And so all of these, when the organ starts to lose motility, which you can pick up by your hand, you can feel if an organ's moving and the tissue around it.
But it does take skill. It's not something there's a lot of people that can't learn it. I've tried to teach it to practitioners many times and they cannot feel it.
Yeah.
So it really takes a fair development of you as the practitioner to get your body calm enough and to open your perceptual field enough, or you don't get past the surface of the body. A lot of time people have a hard time just with that.
Yeah, a lot of people have the hard time with just the surface of the body, and unfortunately, in my experience, a lot of those people are physios and chiropractors.
I know.
But then
it's sad, but it's true.
Yeah, it is. It is. There are some great physios and chiropractors out there, but no one thinks about what's beneath the surface of the skin. And I remember one time I had a patient who had, I think, a pancreatic cancer or liver cancer. I can't remember. But essentially, stage 4, I think the doctor gave him 6 months to live. He came to me just because he was scared, wanted someone to talk to. And so I said, just lay on the table. I just put my hand over his pancreas and his liver and worked on the motility of the pancreas. And he fell asleep during that session. And then he woke up probably half an hour later, feeling a lot lighter. But then he called me the next week, and I barely touched him. All I did was worked on the motility of the pancreas. That was it. And he called me the next week and said, I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not scared to die.
Beautiful.
So just rebooting the motility gave him, in a way, his sense of self back.
Yes.
So the motility is extremely important. I know Burrell works with the motility before the mobility of the organ. And every single kind of physio, chiropractor, osteo I took out to lunch or met with or consulted with, I asked them the same question. And that is, if you had 30 seconds to work with someone, what do? You only had 30 seconds. Burrell said the sphincters of the body and then the motility.
That's
of the
very
organs.
powerful.
There's something most experts are not telling you about success, health, and fulfillment. They want to sell you more tools. There's lots that you can memorize. There's lots of knowledge you can gain. But the one thing that's missing in a lot of these approaches is how to connect deeply to your soul and get inner guidance so that it is your heart guiding you and that your efforts to use those tools, skills, and knowledge are actually fulfilling because you're moving in the direction that your soul came to the world to go in. If you'd like my help and guidance to have the skills, the tools, and the inner connection to your soul so that you are sure you're moving in the right direction in life, you're welcome to join my Spirit Gym community.
Yes, that's the first thing I check with patients.
A lot of people have problems there too, and that goes very, very deep in the psyche.
Oh, yeah.
I did a lot of sphincter work on myself when I learned sphincter work, which I learned, interestingly, studying a book on anatomy from about 1933 by a lady named Mabel Todd. And I think there was one or two of the instructors that I studied with along the way that taught variations of sphincter work. But, you know who else I learned that from is Major Bertrand Desjarnet's books. And in what I always do for myself is I test everything on myself before I start using it clinically, because to the degree that I can. But I had really profound meditative experiences. I would have a routine where I would do the eye sphincter, the oral sphincter, and the anal sphincter, and the urethral sphincter. And I would just sort of do them in a rotation, and I would often couple them. I played around with the breathing sequence to see, for example, would the sphincter exercise work better while inhaling or exhaling? And for example, I found if you do a sphincter contraction on the exhale for the rectum, it doesn't have as good of an effect as if you do it on the inhale, because when the diaphragm drops down as you breathe in, the sphincter has to naturally contract to keep the fecal material from being pushed out by the increased pressure on the intestinal tract with the diaphragm dropping. So if you did the contraction on the exhale, you were actually training the body to do something that was unnatural to it. So I would experiment with all this stuff, but I found myself, it would take me into a deep state of relaxation, but I would actually start having really interesting experiences. Like I would all of a sudden find myself having visions of earthworms eating their way through the earth, and very primal things like rivers and creeks flowing through nature. And this would just spontaneously arrive in my inner vision. And I found that the sphincter system is actually linked to the most primordial developmental stages of the evolution of the human body. And because of that, it links into our most primal sense of fear and whether or not we're safe. And so when people have sphincter dysfunctions, they often have this chronic anxiety that they don't know where it's coming from.
Yeah, the sphincters are highly psychogenic. They're very reactive to the psyche, and they often respond to a stress by either completely opening and staying open or shutting down, sometimes even freezing.
Yeah.
And so that's why a lot of people during stress, they won't get hungry, or they'll be constipated or diarrhea.
Yeah.
And similar to you, when I'm doing sphincter work, I'll often get a vision, and it could be of a childhood abuse or just being yelled at or having a fall or accident, whatever it might be. And more often than not, that's exactly what's going on.
What happened, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's very interesting, but, you know, as I did all this developmental work over many years, it made me sad that this is such rare knowledge in the medical industry, because it is so pivotal to a person's overall physical, emotional, and mental health. And it's so rarely ever talked about that I think it's, you know, we need more awareness, which is why I wanted to get you on the podcast to talk about these things. And, you know, like the average person would have a really hard time if they were even to search the internet to find sphincter exercises. Most doctors and therapists would look at you like, what the hell are you talking about? You know, yet here we are talking about, you know, if you think of, you know, you look at embryology and the whole body literally grows out of the gut tube. It grows out of the intestinal tract. Your brain, your skin, everything comes right out of your forms as your intestinal tract.
Yep.
But, you know, like this is, any anatomy professor would tell you that in 10 seconds and agree with you on it. Yet here we have a whole medical system that's lost touch with the fact that if you think of, like you have endo, ecto, and mesoderm, like those are common concepts, but the whole body is built that way from the core out. And so we keep trying to come from the outside to the inside instead of coming from the inside to the outside. And when you have a medical system that just keeps drugging the shit out of people, and oftentimes, unfortunately, the surgeries, as you know, a lot of them are unnecessary, and it's another wound that the body has to deal with, and it leaves a lot of scar tissue and a lot of problems. I've probably had to do as much work on people from the injuries of the surgery as I have people that ended up needing surgery because of a legitimate injury, like a legitimate disc bulge that needed a surgical intervention or a rotator cuff tear that needed to be repaired. But it's just sad that we don't have more awareness of the developmental structure of the body and how that relates to and emerges outward. So if, like we're talking about, if you got a sphincter problem, it can show up all over the place in many, many different symptoms, but it'll get treated by doctors and therapists in all sorts of ways that are never actually coming to the real issue, which just leads people to go. And interestingly, I was doing research for a podcast maybe a year ago, and I found that the number one cause of bankruptcy today in the United States is medical expenses. More people, I think it was about 68 to 70% of people that go bankrupt don't go bankrupt because they're overusing credit cards or spending foolishly. It's because their medical expenses are so high, they can't even afford to buy food anymore and they have to go bankrupt. Yeah. Which is, when you think about that, it's a really sad situation.
It's sad, and a lot of people are confused. And in my studies, I was blown away. I mean, I'm not putting shit on doctors, but I was actually blown away, generally speaking, how little the doctors knew about the body.
Yeah.
They know a lot about diseases and medication, and that's about it.